Welcome to the Ambitious Introvert podcast, created especially for introverts, empaths, and highly sensitive entrepreneurs to help you build, grow, and scale a successful, sustainable business. I'm your host, Emma-Louise Parks, business and mindset coach for ambitious introverts. After 17 years working as an air traffic controller, the ultimate fast-paced, high-stimulus, extrovert-friendly role, my mission now is to show introverts that they too can create big results and success because of who they are, not in spite of it. I focus on introvert-friendly business and marketing strategy to help you switch overwhelm for clarity, confidence, and clients. Hi, hello, and welcome to this in-between Christmas and New Year edition of the Ambitious Introvert podcast. I'm Emma-Louise, and I, first of all, hope you've had an amazing Christmas. Secondly, hope you have an amazing start to the new year. And I think that a lot of us love to switch off at this time of year, and I definitely love to switch off from being in the front end of my business. Obviously, it's a quieter time online, and rightly so. But what I do love to do is get everything clean and tidy in the background, ready for the new year. I am someone that loves a good spring clean. I love that feeling of getting rid of what's no longer serving me, what's no longer needed, tidying things out. I'm a real minimalist at heart. I get overwhelmed with clutter, whether that's physical, digital, bandwidth, any type of clutter. So I really love to take the opportunity at this time of year to get in behind the business and give it a good, I know it's not spring, a good spring clean, a good tidy out. And whether that's with tech or with investments or mindset or anything. So in this episode, I'm just going to share with you some of the things that I will be doing probably this week as you're listening, and some of the things that I do at the end of every year that just set me up in the best way possible for that lovely fresh start in January. So the question I'd love you to ask yourself is, what can you clean up in your business? And maybe something comes to mind straight away, even just from this introduction. Maybe you've thought of something and you're like, that is where I need to give some attention to. But if not, like I say, I'm going to run through some of the things that I do myself, and maybe you need to take a few of them on board. Maybe, one or two resonate. Maybe you're like, okay, I'm taking notes. I'm doing literally all of this. Like, as always, take what you need and leave what doesn't serve you. But I just wanted to give you some ideas and maybe spark some inspiration so that you can get everything shiny, sparkly, and squeaky clean behind the scenes, because who doesn't love that feeling when we are going into a new year, right? So first off, one of the things that I always take some time to clean, clear, and declutter is my tech. So I try to keep my inbox pretty close to zero most of the year. I say try, doesn't always happen, but I am not that person with 10,000 messages in there. I'm not that person with loads of things unread. However, I do have folders in my inbox, and sometimes I find I haven't been through those for quite a while. There are some newsletters that I subscribe to that maybe don't come that regularly, but actually they come and I go, no, I'm just going to delete that. And then obviously they keep coming. So for my inbox, I will be looking through and going through the folders. Like, have I saved things? There's probably, I've got a collaborations folder for when I've taken part in summits or been on a guest on someone's podcast. I go through there and there's probably like a link to a call that happened 3 months ago or something, because I don't see in those folders day in, day out. This is a really great time to go through and clear out what's not needed. And the same with like newsletters and subscriptions, like those ones that I never really read or that I just automatically delete. I'll be making a note and keeping them, and then actually sitting down and having a big unsubscribe session. When I say big, I'm not subscribed to that many newsletters, so it's not too time consuming, but still, we purchase things or we sign up for things, and then we find ourselves, receiving stuff that maybe it just takes more effort to delete it than actually just unsubscribing once we don't have to think about it again. Another place that I do this is podcast subscriptions, because this is one that has definitely caught me out in the past, where I'm subscribed to a podcast, it automatically downloads on the day of the week that it's released, and then I find I'm not listening to it. I've got off that one, or I've not been listening to many podcasts at that time, and all of a sudden my phone is full of these episodes, and they're going back months and months and months, and that's the kind of thing that majorly feels overwhelming to me. So I will get really, really intentional about which podcasts am I actually listening to, which ones have I listened to in the last few months, and which ones are actually just building up here. So I'd invite you to do the same. Sometimes, the type of things that we consume, especially with podcasts and blogs and things, it can be quite seasonal and it can change. And we can be in a different stage of our life, of our business, of our personal development, of our health journey, whatever it is. And something that was really great for us at one point might not really be that relevant now. And we could actually find it a little bit annoying. So hopefully this podcast will stay on your list, fingers crossed. However, if you've got everything that you need from it and you're ready to carry on, it's been wonderful to have you. But I would really invite you to get kind of mindful about that. And rather than just doing things because we've always done them, being super intentional about what do we actually want to be consuming. Next, I will be tidying out my Google Drive. Now, I wish I could just do this once a year, but I do end up with a lot of files in here, a lot of clients, then things backwards and forwards on Google Drive. I create a lot of things for clients in there, so it can just get a little bit unruly. So that is something that I'll be spending some time just going through. What do I no longer need? What have I got in there? Can I put random files into folders? Can I just organize it a little bit better? And the same on my hard drive, files on the hard drive, things that randomly download. Sometimes I'll download something and read it, and then I forget that it's still actually sat there on the computer and it's not something that I need. So I'll be going through those as well. My calendar is another thing. And this one is very important for me because when we move on to the energetics, I'll be talking a little bit more about this. But I will be looking forwards into at least the first quarter, maybe a little bit further, of 2023. Where do I want to take time off? Where can I already block out that time off? I think so often as entrepreneurs, it's easy for us to work and work and work and then go, I didn't actually take any time off. So being intentional and actually scheduling that time off way in advance so we know it's there means we're much more likely to stick to it. Whereas when we have this idea of, I'm going to take some time off in August, and then it gets to June and then people are booking calls and we're like, oh yeah, I kind of didn't get in there in time. So blocking out time off, blocking out anything major that's happening either in life or business, because that's probably going to affect your energetic capacity, right? So if you have the type of business that has a launch model, or you'll be running a program at a certain time of year, popping that in already, maybe just highlighting that time in a different color or something. So it's really, really obvious when you look. And the same if you've got anything major going on in life, if you know that you're moving house or getting married or having a baby or getting a dog or something that is going to be taking up your bandwidth and energetic capacity, like putting that in there, just because then as things come around during the year, we've got a really, really clear picture for us to see and make like very informed decisions about whether it's a good time to be committing to something else that we've been invited to, right? Another thing is autoresponders and workflows. So if you have autoresponders on your email, is that still relevant? Is it still up to date? Are the links still accurate? Are you telling people the right response time, etc.? And workflows for things like calendar links, booking sales calls, booking in for podcasts, anything like that. Like, are those workflows still working? It's worth just doing a little test, sending maybe from a personal email and just checking that everything is working okay, or do they need updating too? The wallpaper on my laptop and also my phones will very likely get updated. That is because I have a vision board as my wallpaper. So I probably do it a little bit more often than once a year, but I find that it's a really great time with, goal setting and intention setting to update that. So I will definitely be making my vision board to go on my wallpaper. And then lastly, with tech, I will be doing a physical deep clean. So I will be giving the laptop a deep clean, the phone screens, keyboards, mouse, this microphone that I'm talking into now, like all of those things, giving them a really deep sanitize, cleaning the screens. I've got the little aerosol thing with the thin straw to blow all the dust out, all that kind of thing. They get like a quick clean every week, but I find something quite satisfying about sitting and like really getting in and doing a deep clean of them. So that this time of year is the opportunity for me to just kind of sit and do that with no time pressure and knowing that I don't have calls or I'm not showing up on social media. So those are the kind of things that I will be clearing up within my tech. Now on to money. I love clearing and tidying up around money. So the first one I'm going to suggest is tax. Now, that could be different depending where you are, how your business is set up, when your tax and your fiscal years begin and end. But for me, I keep a lot of receipts to give to my accountant. So I will be just checking through again with those files that I'm deleting in the Google Drive and on the hard drive. Are they things that need to be saved? Are they receipts that need to go into my little tax folder? All of that kind of thing. And if you are someone that's tax year is coming up, maybe even just looking around that, like, can I do anything already? Have I got money put aside? What do I need to be thinking about? So tidying up things around tax is obviously a really empowering and a really great energetic to have. I will be looking at my outgoings. So I do this probably every quarter anyway. So I have a good look at what is going out in my business and what is necessary. So are there things that actually I'm paying for and I don't need? So I always think of this from terms of investment. Okay, so there could be an investment, let's say in my business that I'm paying £400 for every month. That is an amazing investment and I get so much ROI on it. And of course that's going to stay. But there could be something that's like $5 that I'm not using. And in that case, I'm going to close it. I'm going to cancel it. And I've discussed this with clients before and they're like, oh, but like, it's just such a small amount. Like, does it matter? Or does that mean that I've got lack mindset or scarcity if I'm worried about saving like $5 or $10? I would say no, because I think the most important thing is that we have that energetic control over where we are choosing to spend our money, because that's the message that we're sending out, right? If we're choosing to spend our money on something that is a great investment and we're seeing a return on it and it makes our life easier and it makes us feel good, or it's great for our clients or whatever the thing is, that's obviously what we want more of. Do we want more of, $5, $10 just going out and it's something that we don't use and then it just comes out? Because over time, if you've got 2 or 3 things like that a month going out, let's say $30, and you do that for a year, $360 just gone that could actually be used for something way better. So I don't think of it as lack. I don't think of it as scarcity. I think of it about the energy of where my money is flowing. I will also be looking at setting up any savings accounts for things that I want. I have a wonderful bank account which lets me set up saving squares within it. So I can I have one set up for my tax. I have one set up for, the next 3 months of outgoings, the next 3 months of my salary, that kind of thing. But on a personal level as well, if I wanted to save for something in particular, I can open up this little space and make sure that I'm creating space for money to go into that, right? Then I'll be looking back over investments that I have made this year. What investments have I made in my business that gave me a great return? What has worked really well for me? What are the things that I absolutely wish to continue investing in? What didn't work so well? I'm going to look at, was there anything I spent that I go, I wouldn't do that again? Or what did I learn from it? Or was it a good investment but the wrong time, etc.? So getting really intentional and looking back to say, and this isn't just about money, right? It's not just like, oh, well, if I spent $1,000, I expect to get $10,000 back, and anything less than that is a bad investment. Some things are definitely a slower burn. Some things take longer. Some investments are not about financial ROI at all. They're about your energy or your sanity. So trust yourself on that and don't think of it as, did the money come back? You will know yourself if something has been a good investment or not. And the only way that we can learn and make better decisions about our investments is by going back and looking over them. And in a similar vein, I will be looking at my sales projections for 2023, at least for the first few quarters. So most of my clients are on 6-month contracts, a couple are on 12 months, but for the people on 6 months, I can then see if I'm looking at the projection for the first 6 months, like when do those people roll off? When does their contract finish? So then when can I think about reaching out to them to see if they'd like to continue? If they don't want to continue, when do I need to think about marketing those spaces? How much money have I got coming in for, say, the next 3-6 months if I did nothing else in the business? So having those projections is really helpful too. And the last thing that I will clean up with money, and this one always makes people laugh, but this is one of my favorite things to do. I will physically clean up my purse. Receipts, cards that I don't use anymore, anything like that, anything that's in there that's not serving a purpose, that's just been shoved in there and forgotten about, anything that's just, taking up space or just creating mess or anything comes out. And my purse is black. It's a black leather purse and it has a black cotton interior. And so any bits of dust or anything in there just, gather and it just looks untidy. So this to me is the energetic of, giving money a good home and a nice home and making sure that it feels good. When I take my purse out, I want to feel good, right? So we clean out anything that, doesn't need to be there. It's taking up space, it's making it look tatty. Then I vacuum it, empty everything out and I vacuum it. Then I sage it. Yes, I sage it, which always feels really, really good. Hold it over the smoke. Then I give it a good polish because, like I say, it's leather. So I make sure that the leather's polished. I have a crystal inside my purse. I can't remember which type it is, but it's like an abundance crystal. So I'll make sure that that has had a nice charge in the full moon. And then what I love to do for the start of the year is get a crisp note, something like a 20, a really nice crisp one from the cash point or ATM, and have that sat there in the purse. So literally like clearing out the energy to allow more money to come in for next year. And speaking of energy, let's move on to energetics. So we're going to talk about energetics and mindset for the last two categories. These can be a little less tangible than, say, tech and money, but still super important. And there are still ways that you can definitely look at clearing them out. So in energetics, the absolute first thing that I will look at is boundaries. And where have they slipped? Where has there been scope creep? What do I need to address in 2023? And the reason I said earlier when we were talking about the calendar and looking forwards and blocking things off in the calendar is because I already know, without doing this work, one of my boundaries that has slipped this year is having a week each month with no calls. So this is something that I set out in my business back in 2020. And then invariably what has happened this year is I've gotten busy. People want to do something like a podcast interview or a summit, and I don't necessarily have the capacity during a client call week. So I think I'll just do it on that week off because it's not a client call. That's the kind of what's going through my mind. It's like, oh, week off client calls, but I can just do this one thing. And then of course that one thing turns into two things. And then it ends up that it's 3 months and I've had some kind of call on all of those weeks. So this is really important to me for a number of reasons. One is that I take those weeks off client calls. Like I'm still serving clients in Slack and I'm still creating content and I'm still recording the podcast, etc. But it's really important to me to have that time in my own energy so that I can be the best coach and have the best energy for my clients, right? So that's the first reason. And the second is it's actually in my human design chart. It's a very important thing. And I actually implemented this in the business before I even knew this, but having that consistently, having that time off on a regular basis is really important to me. So that's an example of a boundary for me that has slipped that I will be stronger in implementing in 2023. So with you, it could be maybe checking social media at certain times. It could be replying to clients at weekends. It could be some other kind of scope creep that, you've ended up doing something for clients that wasn't in your packages, but it's just happened. Like, whatever the thing is, like, have a good look at those boundaries to see where they may have just slipped a little. And the other energetic that I will look at is congruence. Now, this has been a big one for me this year, and it's something that luckily I've gotten very good at noticing quickly, but I will still sit down and take the time in case I've missed anything. So one of my favorite quotes is, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." Okay, so everyone can show up on social media. A lot of people are on there talking a big talk saying, this is my day. I started with a green juice and I did my mindset work and then I did an hour of yoga and then I did this and then blah, 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 blah. Like, that's all fine if that's what they're actually doing. And it's not just something that's been kind of paraded out for social media, right? So the other side of congruence is that it's more important to be doing all of those things than talking about doing all of those things. So much of our outer experience and our reality is a reflection of our own actions. So if there's something in your business that you are unhappy about, I would invite you to check in that you are acting in integrity with it. So I will give you a couple of examples here. A client of mine was complaining quite a lot that not many people engage on her posts. So this was something we spoke about in a session. She's like, no one's engaging in my posts, no one comments, no one likes, and blah, blah, blah. And then the next session, I think it was, she was like, "Oh, I realized I'm just literally posting and running on a couple of platforms." And she was taking no time to read other people's content. She was taking no time to engage in it and like it. And, she came to that realization herself and she was like, it's just, there's not congruence. Like, how can I expect people to do that for me if I'm not taking the time and effort to do that for them? And it's so, so true. And this can show up in really, really small ways that we don't even notice. So if you do feel unhappy about something, or there was something that you would maybe like more of in your business, the big one that we see in the online space that isn't always portrayed in the best way, but is this, if you don't invest in yourself, how do you expect anyone to invest in you? And that can be used as kind of a shaming tactic and a bit for FOMO, which, I very much don't agree with. But there is also something there of, you will find people saying, no one's signing up with me. And then they're not investing in their growth. So as an energetic, congruence is extremely powerful. So maybe people are paying you late. Like, then I would invite you to look, are you always paying your bills on time? Are you struggling to collect testimonials from people? And if so, are you giving testimonials when they're requested, or are you freely sharing your experience? This was one for me. I'm great at giving testimonials to coaches, service providers, whoever that have worked with me, but I'm really bad at giving them for things like hotels or restaurants, and so I would stay at a hotel and then I get an email saying, "Hey, how was your stay? We'd love you to write a review." And I would just delete it. Like, the congruence is not there. If I'm then, the next day, maybe sending an email to a former client saying, "Hey, I'd love to hear how your experience was. Could you write me a review?" The chances are they might be thinking, delete. So whatever it is, how small it might seem, is there an area where your actions are not congruent with the actions that you are trying to call in from other people? And finally, let's move on to mindset. So yes, another slightly intangible one to be able to kind of audit and clear out, but also one that doesn't have to be done in a set period, right? So we don't have to sit down and say, right, I'm going to spend 5 minutes auditing my mindset like we would maybe with the tech, for instance. But it's one that you sit with, that you can work through, of course, journal on, but there'll be thoughts that you're carrying that are actually no longer serving you. And especially at this time of year, many people are thinking, what do they want their year to look like next year? What goals do they have, whether it's personal goals or revenue goals or life goals? But there will be thoughts that you have that are from this year, maybe even from last year, maybe even from the one before, that won't be serving you in achieving that. So first off, like, what can you notice? What thoughts do you have that are maybe old? So for me, one that I had for a long time is that business was hard. It was really hard. Business was a struggle. It has to be hard because my first best part of 2 years in business were hard. They really were. But then they got to a point where it wasn't hard anymore. But I was still in that energy of, oh, but that's hard. So that was one that I had to let go and replace. And along a similar vein, is your mindset practice still serving you? So quite often when we get into business or personal development and we start doing mindset and energy practices, they work phenomenally well, but they can get stale. And also we grow very, very quickly. And if we're still doing the same things, they wouldn't necessarily have the same result. Think of it like exercise, right? If you start an exercise practice and you run a kilometer on the first day, that is going to tire you out. That's really going to give your lungs a great workout. You're going to be hot and sweaty and probably ache the next day. But then as you keep doing that and you build up your strength and you build up your stamina, if you run that kilometer like in 3 months' time, that would probably be a warm up, right? So if that was all you were doing, you're going to plateau and you're not going to get that kind of muscle growth. It's exactly the same with the mindset practice. So where do you feel like maybe you're just going through the motions? Maybe you pull your journal out and you write the same affirmations still, and it's almost like a habit and it's rote and it's just doing it for the sake of doing it. So we're not always getting benefit from those things if we're not really feeling it. So where could you mix it up? And where could you feel a bit more excited? What could you bring in? Could you bring in some different practices? Could you maybe do it in a different location at a different time of day? Could you do it in a different way? Like maybe if you have been writing things out, maybe you could speak things out or vice versa. And then getting really clear on what is the main focus of your mindset practice for 2023. Because having a focus that we can bring it back to, which ties in with our next point that I'm going to move on to, but having a focus that we can bring it back to helps us be really intentional as well. So maybe you want more money in 2023. Maybe you want more clients. Maybe you want something in personal growth. So an example for me this year, I have done a lot of work around patience. I am not a very patient person generally. And it's actually my human design and gene keys that it's a big lesson that I have to learn. And, when I ignore it and when I just get impatient, of course, what happens is the universe throws things at me to test my patience. So it's been a bit of a standing joke amongst friends and I this year, but that has been a big example of something that I have consciously worked on this year. It's been at the forefront of a lot of my mindset practice. And my patience has definitely improved because of it. So, it's not always the tangible things that we might be working towards in our mindset. It can be the other things as well. And for me, being more patient feels more peaceful, which is amazing. And then with that intention, are you choosing a word of the year? Now, this seems to be a 50-50 thing. Some people love it, some people hate it. And if you are in the hate it camp, please feel free to not listen for about the next 30 seconds. But if you are in the love it camp, like, what is your word for the year? And how can you start applying that and embodying that right now? So rather than go, I'm going to wait till January the 1st, like even as you are maybe doing these exercises, as you're clearing through things, how can you start to measure against that word for next year to see what is relevant, what's not serving you, what needs to change, and where your focus needs to be? And the last mindset kind of polish I would invite you to give is really simple one. What do you want more of? What is it that you want more of in 2023? Because when you are dialed in on what you want more of, it's really easy to say no to things that don't get you more of that, right? Maybe it's more time, more freedom. Maybe it's more fulfillment. Maybe it's more money. Maybe it's more impact. Maybe it's more clients. Maybe it's more subscribers. Maybe it's more products and services. Maybe it's more time playing with the cat. Like whatever that more is for you, and maybe there's more than one. But when we are super dialed in on what we want more of, it's a really great filter to run things through. So let's just say you want more time, like me, with my week off of calls each month. then it's a really easy filter for me to run that through now. If someone invites me to do something on that week, to say no, because it doesn't get me more time off, right? So it's just a small example of getting clear on what it is that you want more of and being able to use it to really get intentional. So that is a brain download of how I think about cleaning and tidying up and patching over those energy leaks with my tech, with my money, with my energetics, and with my mindset ready to start in 2023. So if you have found this useful, if you've enjoyed hearing about how I think about these things and how I approach them after almost 4 years in business now, then do make sure to tune in to the podcast in January. We're taking a break from the regular guest episodes and to do a special mini series where I'm going to be sharing with you my thoughts behind different parts of running my business. Things like marketing, how do I think about mindset, my thoughts behind investments, that kind of thing. So I can't wait to give you a sneak peek of processes and what goes around in my head when I'm thinking about these things and dealing with them on a daily basis and making decisions about them. And I know that this is going to be super helpful for you, whatever stage of business you are at. So I hope that you will tune in. And that just leaves me to say thank you once again. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening all throughout this year. I am so honored to have you and have your ears on this show. It's one of my favorite things that I create in my business. And it's always a joy to know that people are listening. So thank you. Have a wonderful new year and wishing you a happy, healthy and successful 2023 and really hope that you get more of whatever it is that you want next year. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ambitious Introvert podcast with me, Emma-Louise Parks. If you enjoy this show, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on iTunes. As a thank you, one lucky reviewer each month will win a 60-minute one-on-one coaching session with me, where you'll get the clarity and confidence to attract your ideal clients. And if you know someone who could benefit from listening to the show, then please do share and help me reach as many fellow ambitious introverts as possible.